If pain and suffering are the best navigational tool you have, are the best guides you have in your arsenal, then life will just keep giving them to you as long as you're pursuing your dreams, as long as you're pursuing your goals. Because what I mean by that is that sometimes life will give you something that threatens your survival, will give you something to fear, will give you something that you try to avert, like pain aversion, suffering aversion, in order to set your intention clear, in order to read your vibrational alignment, in order to know what you truly want out of it, in order to know what your true intentions are. Because you're undecided, you're unclear about anything, you're always split between two different realities. You work towards something and then you identify with your current reality. Whenever there's an external stimulant, whenever there's something that threatens your survival, whenever there's something that you're trying to avert, whenever there's something that you're in fear of, you start working, you start putting effort towards that reality, you start seeking that reality truly and identifying with it. And whenever there's no external stimulant, you keep seeking it on the inside, you keep dreaming about this reality you're pursuing in life, but you're identifying externally with your current reality, with your present reality, you're identifying with the comforts of your current reality, and that causes a tug of war. And so sometimes you're even asking for that suffering, for that pain, to set your intentions clear, to give you a guide to what you should do next. Because without that suffering, without that pain, you're undecided, you don't work towards what you want, what you truly want in life. And that's how you're asking for it. You're asking for it to happen because you cannot work otherwise. You cannot have the things you want otherwise, whether it's intentional, whether it's conscious or unconscious. That's what you're doing. But you could actually also stop it from happening. You could ask for this suffering and pain to stop from happening whenever you actually want them to stop. But the thing about life is, since prehistoric times, there are plethora of studies that came up in the last century, during the 20th century, that proves that pain and pain aversion are way better motivators than the promise of reward, than the anticipation of reward. People have always been driven by their fear of pain rather than by their excitement and anticipation of reward. I don't know if there have been, and especially on the short term, but sometimes some studies showed that on the long term, the promise of reward seems to produce better results. And I don't know what the updates have come to at this point, but since prehistoric time, people always did something out of the threat to their survival, out of having their survival threatened. There is always something, to try and avoid, in order to avert this thing from happening, in order to avert the suffering experience, this experience of distress, they would do that thing. And you have been probably functioning this way since your childhood, since a very long time ago, and you never grown out of it, you've never overcame it. There's always something, you were always working and functioning based on your fear of that happening or not happening, based on your fear of being abused or scolded or shamed or being a disappointment, and that you've been living through this pattern up to this point. You never grew out of it. It was always something that you feared that led you to actually try and change your life, and it's still working the same way. But when does it stop? You're still working the same way. You're still, whenever there's something that threatens your survival, you get focused and you're motivated and you want to do this and you want to change your life and you want to change the whole world. Because you're trying to avert that pain. You're trying to avoid that experience of suffering from becoming a crisis. You're trying to stop your suffering from enhancing and becoming a crisis, a permanent distress. You're trying to avoid, whenever you're just functioning because you're trying to avoid creating another experience, a disappointing experience, being a failure, being a disappointment. But is that what you truly want? Is that what you're truly seeking? If that's what you're truly seeking, then why, whenever this threat to your survival is gone, you stop actually wanting what you truly want in life, and you start reverting to your old patterns, to your old habits, to your old life, to the comfort, to the coping mechanisms of your current reality. And it stops this whole suffering and pain paradigm being your motivator, stops whenever you constantly say you're gonna do something and you actually do it. without the need of doing it, without the presence of a fear that drives your doing of that thing, but rather just you promise yourself, I will do this today, I'll do that tomorrow, and you actually do that thing. The more you do this, you prove to yourself, you prove to life, you prove to your vibrations, you prove your energy to be a free energy, to be to vibrate on sovereignty, to align with sovereignty, with the frequency of freedom and sovereignty. And when that happens, you stop. Life has no longer any need to give you an experience of suffering or distress, to cause you to work, to give you what you truly seek in life. And so as long as you're seeking, your true seekings are only driven by a pain factor, by your fear of this suffering turning into a crisis, or by this pain remaining and being always there in your life, if that's always what drives your true seekings, then you will always be presented with an experience of suffering. Because your true seekings, what's coming, your grand intention, everything that's happening in your life is to fulfill that grand intention, is to fulfill that calling you're asking for from life, you're praying for to God to happen in your life, to be able to create it in your life. That's what drives each and every experience in your life. And as long as they are in a toxic relationship with suffering and distress, then you're always gonna be experiencing those in your life. As long as you're truly seeking, as long as you maintain that seeking from within you. But when you stop, when you prove that you're able to do whatever is needed, whatever you want to do, without the need of an external factor to be present, without the need for pain and suffering to be there in your life, if you prove that you're always doing that, you're always waking up, early, although you don't need to, you're not afraid of anything happening, you're not in fear of that happening or not happening, you're not trying to stop that experience from turning into a permanent distressful experience, from turning into a crisis, you're just doing it because you want to do it, then there will no longer be any need for pain and suffering to remain in your life, to be presented in each and every experience. And so you have two options with this. You have two things to do with this information: to either stop pursuing your dreams, to either give up on your dreams and let them go from your internal alignment, to let them go from your internal seekings, which is probably impossible. Because once you awaken to your calling, once you're awakened to your purpose, it's not something that you could fend off. It's not something that you can avoid. It just keeps coming back time after time, no matter how many times you avoid it. I've avoided my calling for so long, for 5 years before I actually started, working towards it. And it kept coming back. I would get distracted with a different experience. I would like the comfort of my current reality. I would get sucked into a different reality. And then it would disappear, and then something would happen, and I would fall out of alignment with that reality, and it will disappear from my life, because my true purpose, my calling was always there. And as long as it's there, it's just gonna keep coming back. And if pain aversion is your best navigational tool, then it will always come with pain. It will always come with an experience of distress. But your two options is to either let go of it, to completely give up on it, really let go of it, remove it from your internal seekings, and affirm to yourself over and over that this is not something that you want. And then you will have no reason, life will have no reason to give you another experience of suffering or another painful experience, because now you're not in need to be driven towards something. You're not asking out of life to drive you towards a different reality, but rather you're very content, you're very fulfilled with your current reality, or prove to yourself that you're able to work, that you're able to remain focused on what you truly seek in life, even in the absence of any painful stimuli, even in the absence of an external factor that you're trying to avoid, even in the absence of any suffering aversion. Prove to yourself that you will do anything and everything that's required from you, that you want to do out of your own free will, out of sovereignty, not out of being afraid of being a disappointment, or disappointing your partner or your family, or turning out to be a failure yourself, or being afraid of losing that thing, or having that problem magnified, or being or falling into deeper problems. Rather, you're doing it because you wanna do it. When you prove that to yourself, you will no longer experience suffering or pain for that reason. And those are your two options. Those are your two options to stop suffering and pain, because there's no reason for suffering to be in your life except for this, except to drive you towards what you truly are asking for, but you're not focusing on, and you're not giving any attention unless there is suffering in your life. Because we're not here to suffer. You're not here to suffer. Life does not want you to suffer. The only reason it gives you that distressful experience is to give you what you truly seek in life, is to get you closer to your dream reality. And with that, when there's no need for that suffering to get you closer to your dream reality, you're flowing with life. You're letting go of the things you need to let go of. You know that you have to let go of some things, and you let go of them. You know that you have to adopt some things, and you adopt them in order for you to get closer to that dream reality. You're doing all of that without a forceful factor. Then there will be no reason absolutely for any forceful factors in your life, because you will vibrate on freedom, you will vibrate on free will, you will align with sovereignty. And that will be projected in each and every experience. You know what to do without anyone telling you. But as long as you're functioning out of that old paradigm, someone needs to tell me to do this in order for me to do that. I need to be guided. I need to be afraid of something to do that thing, or to start focusing on that thing. I'm only studying and learning because I'm afraid of failing that test and then getting punished by my family, by my parents, and this and that, or turning out to be a disappointment, or disappointing my parents, or this or anything. As long as you're functioning within this old paradigm, it will be your reality. It will keep being your reality, because that's what you're even asking for, unconsciously and unintentionally, non-intentionally. And now you know it. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to another video by AF's Conscious Frequency. I love you all, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, because it helps me so much, and it helps this video find its way to many more others who might actually need it.